Glenn, it's great to have you on the broadcast. Let's start with the big question: why you're running for governor of Virginia?
Well, good morning, Alex, and thank you for having me. Love your show, and I think it's time that we get off the sidelines and get in the arena. I had a 30-year business career. I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative. I'm a business builder. I know how to create jobs, and I just watched what's happened to my home state of Virginia, and couldn't take it. I know that Virginia is so much better than it is. It used to be the best state in America to live and work and raise a family. And so I stepped down from my job last summer, got ready to run for governor, and we're going to go get Virginia out of the ditch. And Virginia's worth it, and I think our country's worth it. And I'm terribly excited, just really excited with the momentum that we've built, the grassroots enthusiasm and support. And we're marching to win on our convention on May the 8th and then turn around and win again in November and put Virginia back where she belongs, as the best state in America to live and work and raise a family.
Yeah, and it's a great premise for a candidacy, and I'm a Virginia resident, and I haven't been there for too long, but I've been there a few years, and I had thought of it, of course, as a purple state even just a few years ago, and now it's increasingly seeming like it's a blue state. I mean, you never know. The pendulum swings back. But what are the problems? We know that the Washington swamp has expanded, and it seems to continue to expand. But what do you see as major shifts over the last decade or so in Virginia that you feel like you can course correct?
Yeah, the first one is that under Democrat leadership, Virginia went from being a great state to do business in to not a great state to do business in. And unfortunately, we've watched Tennessee and North Carolina and South Carolina, Georgia, and Maryland actually grow much faster economically, create many more jobs. And yet Virginia's cost of living continues to escalate faster. And as a result, Virginia families are moving away. And Alex, you know where they're moving? Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and
Sure.
Texas. Better job opportunities,
Of course,
lower
exactly.
cost of living. And I'd suggest Republican governors. And so this is a big issue. And then second of all, we've watched our constitutional rights come under assault, particularly since we've now had, the trifecta in Richmond with a Democrat House and a Democrat Senate and a Democrat governor. And then finally, we've just watched so many things like our schools remain permanently closed. I mean, it's unbelievable that Florida's been open 5 days a week since August, and Florida's kids are doing so much better. And we got Virginia that, as of last week, still 70% of our schools were partially or fully closed to in-classroom education. That's just not right, and Virginia families are suffering. So there's a lot of topics to address, and I think finally the big issue is Republicans have done a very, very poor job of winning. It's been over 10 years since Republicans have won a statewide race. And, Alex, the primary reason for this is that we haven't engaged with so many of the communities that are conservative, minority communities that are conservative, the Indian community, the Korean community, the Hispanic community, the Taiwanese community, the Filipino community, the black community. Goodness gracious. And the Republicans in Virginia have been running the old playbook for a long time. And we're going to just run a different kind of campaign where we actually bring together conservatives across Virginia and we win. And that's a new concept for Republicans in Virginia. And I'm looking forward to getting it done.
Yeah, and one thing that you'll have to contend with is the swamp expansion, and this is where my neighborhood has gotten gobbled up. I live in an area that was one of the last holdouts where you could conceivably get a Republican elected in the Beltway, and over the past few years, it's become, of course, usurped by the pro-big government left, which runs Washington, D.C., and their tentacles, of course, expanding outward, as is always the case. But this is a lot of your state is like this. And one thing that it's interesting you point out the schools, because it would be very risky in my neighborhood to put up, let's say, a Donald Trump sign, but you can put up a Open Schools Now sign. So there's something about the political climate where Republicans being seen as perceived to endorse a Republican, risky in my neighborhood in Virginia. But, you can make a statement that goes against the big government Democrats who want to keep schools closed. So how do you reconcile all this? How do you contend as a Republican in a state that is increasingly becoming a subsidiary of Washington?
Well, first, Alex, I think your point is spot on about the fact that there are universal issues right now that are not political. And opening schools is absolutely one of them. The other one is not losing our status as a right-to-work state. And this in the business community is universally supported to stay right to work and not allow a Democrat governor to sign legislation that will come out of a Democrat House and signed by a Democrat and a Democrat Senate in order to give up our right to work, which, oh, by the way, is just a death knell for a business climate. And so there are absolutely big picture topics that are universally supported by Virginians, not just Republicans. And then I think finally, what I've heard is I've traveled all over this great Commonwealth. And oh, by the way, we've eclipsed 14,000 miles in 12 weeks, and we've been visiting with thousands and thousands and thousands of Virginians. Yes, Republicans, but also independents and some Democrats. And what I hear over and over and over again is that what's happened in Richmond with pressing to abortions all the way up to birth, if not after a child has been born, which Governor Northam has been advocating for, pressing for abolishing right to work, pressing for giving up our electoral college votes and allowing us to cast those based on how the nation votes, as opposed to Virginia, which was a bill that was making its way through the House. These are not Republican only concerns. And so Virginians are ready to come together and push back against this big lurch left that they're seeing coming out of this trifecta of Democrats in Richmond. And it is universally heard across the Commonwealth, and I even hear it in a lot of Northern Virginia. So I am really optimistic. By the way, mathematically, we can win a reasonable chunk of Northern Virginia back. We don't have to win fully Northern Virginia, 51%. We just have to get her back from the 70-30 to close to 60-40. And then with the strength that we have across our red counties, and oh, by the way, the strength we're seeing in Hampton Roads and suburban Richmond, we're going to win this November, and Virginians are going to stand up and make a statement about our shared values.
Glenn Youngkin, again, is my guest. He's a candidate for governor in Virginia at Glenn Youngkin on Twitter, youngkinforgovernor.com as well. Let me roll through a bunch of issues because I'm sure our audience is eager to get to know you and know where you stand on some of the issues. And I'll start with the toughest one, which is you've taken a lot of heat for when you're running the Carlyle Group, which is a private equity firm, that the Carlyle Group had a program where they would match donations to various causes, including the SPLC, which has been very horrible to Breitbart and most conservatives in general. And I know this has caused some headaches for you. What happened here? What's going on? How could this be possible?
Yeah. So, Alex, first of all, no headaches, just transparency. And so, first of all, I've never given any money to the SPLC. And in the process of putting together a list for organizations that Carlyle would match, I reviewed the list. I knocked organizations off the list, like BLM, which I didn't think fit. And as the list progressed, I just missed the SPLC. And so, if I could read the letter a third or fourth time, I would have not missed it, but I missed it. And so I own that. I was a co-CEO at the time, and there's no excuse. I just missed it. And if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't miss it. Just want you to know that Suzanne and I have supported Christian charities around the country, around the world, and in this great Commonwealth. We've supported Republican candidates, and SPLC is just the antithesis of the things that we believe. And Alex, I missed it, and it's my mistake, and I'll own it. But that's the way I address things. If I've made a mistake, I'll own it. But in this case, I just want everyone to know that this is not consistent with my values and Suzanne's values. We are Christians, we're conservatives, and we're Republicans. And oh, by the way, in that order. And our values actually are represented by the things that we are advocating for in this campaign: small government, a rip-roaring economy based on the free enterprise system, standing up for our constitutional rights, standing up for police, standing up to get our schools open, and oh, by the way, making sure that election integrity is progressed in a way that we, in fact, reestablish people's faith in our election process. And oh, by the way, Alex, I've said over and over again that election integrity is not a Republican issue, and it's not a Democrat issue. But I will say the Democrats complained about it after 2016. This is a democracy issue.
Yeah.
And so we have to get at these most important issues, and those are the things that, as I campaign around Virginia and talk to all Virginians, they are so excited about hearing an outsider, someone who's not a politician, somebody who can get things done based on a 30-year track record of delivering results, talk about how we're going to get things done in Virginia and move us to a new day.
So the globalism is on the march throughout the country and really throughout the Western world, and it's tough to fight because so much of it is not just from Democrats, it's from Republicans as well. And this has been a centerpiece of our coverage at Breitbart, as I'm sure you're aware, and of the show as well. And I want to take on a few of these issues in particular. Amnesty and open borders, for starters. This is a big issue that affects the whole country, not just in terms of national sovereignty, but again, the illegal aliens end up throughout the country, and Virginia has a pretty substantial illegal alien population, and this is going to be something you're going to have to address. Give me your overall thoughts and then maybe some policy ideas you'd have.
Well, first, the travesty that is happening at our southern border right now is caused by the Biden administration, and everybody knows it. President Trump actually had established stability. We had a secure border. We actually had policies that demanded that people who want to come into our country apply to come into our country from the other side of our border, or even in the first country that they come to on their way to our border, and it was working. And so the open border policy that the Biden administration has put in place has caused an absolute human tragedy. And you can't watch it and think about children being handed over the wall and not be incredibly concerned about what happens next. And what happens next, of course, is human trafficking that is just expanded in an unbelievable way. It's one of the things Suzanne and I have stood up for a long time, which is to fight human trafficking, which is just an anathema in today's society that we still have to worry about those things. And so we have to secure our border, and we have to reestablish a recognition that, yes, legal immigration actually strengthens our country. Illegal immigration undermines, and we must, in fact, work hard to enforce our laws. And Virginia, unfortunately, is in the middle of this. And no governor in our country today is immune from this, because the illegal immigration that is happening in our border right now, again, due to the Biden administration's incompetency, we end up with issues that governors all over this country are having to deal with. And the reality is, and I hear this from the immigrant community in the minority groups today across Virginia, please enforce our immigration laws. Please enforce our immigration laws. We waited. We got a green card, and then we became citizens. We're proud to be citizens. We actually cast our vote with pride. And please, please, please enforce our immigration laws. And as governor, that's what I'll do.
Let's talk a little bit about cancel culture. Virginia has seen cancel culture come to your community colleges, where you're canceling different mascots and names of various streets and high schools. And I know a high school in my neck of the woods just had their name changed for some absurd logic I didn't fully understand. This is the type of stuff that really does, I think, reflect very poorly on the direction of the state. Are you able to, do you see a path to course correct on this, or do you think this is a losing battle? Give me your thoughts.
Well, first of all, the First Amendment has been under assault for quite a while. Let's just start with freedom to express our religious beliefs. And the governor, in fact, kept my church closed, but opened up massage parlors and ABC stores. And it took a Supreme Court ruling in order to fix that. And the Second Amendment right, where we get to express our views, our opinions, our freedom of speech, truly is being oppressed, particularly by big tech today, but also in our schools and our universities, where our kids actually are afraid to express a conservative view or even a religious view, not just for fear of a failing grade, but for retribution and bullying. So as governor, I'm going to stand up for this. I'm going to say this is wrong, and let's just be clear. And I think sometimes governors forget that they need to point out what's right and wrong, and our governor has failed to do that. You watch Ron DeSantis stand up and say what's right and what's wrong, and I just deeply respect him for that. In this case, particularly, we watch big tech actually censor and try to control what we read from conservative voices, and I'll follow that exact same line and find big tech to make sure that they're not able to do this. And then finally, I do believe that we have to teach all history, and we can't airbrush it out. And I think this is one of the big challenges that we're facing now, is this idea that we can airbrush away history that is dark, that is embarrassing, that is wrong, that is sinful. And this is not the way that you actually understand our history and move forward. And so I just think we need to teach all of our history, the good and the bad, and just recognize that that's part of our American past. It's not part of our American future. But in order to have a great future, we do have to understand our past. So there's a lot of work to do here. But as governor, I'll stand up for our First Amendment rights. As governor, I'll make sure that we're not canceled, that we are not censored, and that we all get to share in this amazing country's guaranteed right to express our views and to express our religious beliefs.
Currently, the governor is Ralph Northam, who's been a subject on the show a million times over the past few years, but for no reason more so than when he talked about really a justification for what we refer to as fourth trimester abortions, or abortions after the baby's actually been born, which is murder, of course, and he's endorsed it in a radio interview. And it is a sort of thing where it is shocking, yet it is real, and it does signify a culture shift as well. I'm sure you're familiar with some of the audio that I'm alluding to. Give me your thoughts on abortion in general and the way the governor has conducted himself currently.
So, Alex, I'm pro-life, and what my religious foundation and the cornerstone of my life teaches me is to protect life before birth and after birth. And what the governor has done is an anathema to me. I don't understand where his moral compass is, and I guess he doesn't have one, unfortunately, because I'd pray for him that he does. We've actually watched him sign legislation that expands abortion access with state funds on Good Friday, 2 years in a row. So as governor, I just want Virginians to know that I'll stand for life. But I also think that one of the big challenges that we've got is we have government both in Richmond and in Washington. In Richmond and in Washington that seem to believe that the sanctity of life isn't something that we need to protect, and also seem to believe that the Constitution is something that we can choose where we want to stand for it. I mean, you had President Biden actually say no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. And these are the kinds of positions that are wavy, that are squishy, and these are absolutes. These are not squishy issues. These are absolute issues. And as we just said in the last discussion, that if we don't stand up for our Constitution, if we don't stand up for the rights guaranteed under our Bill of Rights, if we don't stand up for life, then who will? And by the way, what underpins our American future? So as governor, these are the things that I'll stand up for. Yes, we will build a rip-roaring economy like we've never seen before. And President Trump taught us that when there are more jobs than anybody can take, it lifts up everybody. Everybody. There's been no solution to economic opportunity better than free enterprise in the history of the world. No government program is ever going to fix this. This is about unleashing free enterprise in Virginia. And this is about creating jobs and creating opportunity. But we also have to stand up for those things that we know are absolutely right. And so, President Biden, the Constitution isn't something that we get to choose from. These amendments are absolute, and we must stand up for them.
Glenn Youngkin, candidate for governor in Virginia, at Glenn Youngkin on Twitter. You can go to youngkinforgovernor.com as well. Well, best of luck to you, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out.
Alex, thank you so much for having me this morning. It's such a pleasure to be with you. And again, I appreciate you reminding everybody it's youngkinforgovernor.com. And we're going to press forward and win in our convention on May the 8th and turn around and beat Terry McAuliffe, whoever else the Democrats set on us in November, and take back our Commonwealth and put her back where she belongs as the best state in America to live and work and raise a family. So thank you so much for having me, and I wish you a blessed day.
You're welcome, and we'd love to see it. So we will be watching with great interest at Breitbart and on the show. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.